Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program the proprietor of the Uber blog Hullabaloo and columnist at salon.com. Thank you. Yeah, there it is. Heather, welcome back to the program. You are on, this is the final Friday of 2025.
Wow. Well, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.
But can you believe that we made it?
Yeah. It feels like it's been 4 years already, 10 years. I mean, I can't afford to, be doing that. I need every minute now, in my life.
I just remember like after we found out the results, and we found out super quickly on election night. I just was like, 4 years. How are we going to do it? How am I going to do one day? How am I going to do one week?
Down. One down, 3 to go.
Almost 1/4 of the way through.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And I just want to say, just to be hopeful at this time of year, that it's also possible that like nature takes its course, and we don't wait 4 years, at least for Trump's administration to end. I mean, it still will be a Republican one, but I mean, who knows?
Well, it'll be a J.D. Vance one, and I think we all need to stop and think hard about what that might be like.
I think that's a good point, and maybe that's something we should be like focusing on come the new year. But let's talk about where we are today. Today was the day that the Department of Justice, and they've had 30 days at a minimum to prepare for this day, and certainly we've had reports that there were like dozens of FBI agents who were combing through this material prior to even the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So it's not like, they didn't have time to redact this stuff if they wanted, but they're claiming today that they need more time. They'll release some stuff, but my guess would be that stuff does not have the name Trump in it. But give me your perspective on this.
Well, first of all, let me just say, this morning, my husband came in and woke me up. He gets up early. He woke me up and he goes, "You're not going to believe it. They released all the Epstein files, and it's nothing but porn. It's porn from beginning to end." And I just kind of sat up straight in bed and I went, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Of course, he's going, "Yeah, you awake now?" I'm going, "Yeah, I am." Obviously, nothing is going to come out here of any import, porn or otherwise. I don't think in the early going. I mean, they're pulling a Bill Barr, right? Where before the Mueller report came out, he did his little analysis of what it was going to say, and it tainted the perception of what the Mueller report was said, and that's what this is about. They're going to put out some stuff that I don't know what they'll go after some Democrats, or there'll be some stuff in there that people can talk about. And then we're going to have the Christmas season, and everybody's going to be off work and doing their family thing, and they're going to hope that this thing dies down, and it won't, because it just won't. I mean, the problem they have is that there are a bunch of women out there who are saying, "This happened to me," and they are not going to let go of it. And there are plenty of people on all sides of the political spectrum who want to see what is in there. So, the idea of them kind of, I mean, I think they'd be better off just releasing it all. I've thought that from the very beginning. Put it out. Yes, you'll take a hit. Yes, there'll be some problems. But Trump, at the height of his popularity, such as it was, in the high 40s or whatever, would have been better off than he is now, that he's sinking like a stone. And, even some of the MAGA people are kind of going, I'm still paying, huge amounts at the grocery store. It's stupid, but, good. Let it happen. I mean, let it happen, and let the chips fall where they may. I don't care who's in those things. I don't care who it hurts. It's fine. Let it all come out. And I think most people are at that point. Just, let's see it. No, not the porn, by the way, but you know what I mean.
I mean, obviously, I would like to see this stuff released, but I agree with you. As a political matter, the fact that they keep dripping, like that it's been such a sort of like slow leak seems to be the complete opposite of what you would do if you were trying to minimize the story in any way. And I mean, the only thing I can imagine, but this is like 12-dimensional chess, is that they're creating this sense that there's something really horrific in there, and then it turns out to be not so horrific for
No
Trump.
one will believe it, though.
But
they'll believe that they hit it, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it makes me believe that it must be pretty bad for him in there. Now, I don't know what the nature of it is. Like, I mean, we all just assume that it's going to be clear that there's indication that he has, molested or raped underage women or something to that effect. It also seems conceivable to me that there's maybe other stuff about his business dealings or about his relationship to other stuff that Epstein was involved in that could be it. I mean, who knows? We're just, it's all speculation at this point, but it's also sort of surprising. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, did you see the article in the New York Times yesterday?
Yes.
About Trump and, in the 90s when he was a young playboy he was 48 years old in 1995. So, that's a young playboy. I'm sorry.
I mean, speaking as someone who's almost 60 myself, like I'm saying, like, the numbers are just an age.
Exactly.
Age is just a number.
They're using the J.D. Vance curve of the young Republicans, the 35-year-old children.
Right, 40. Right, exactly. So he and Epstein were just young playboys in the 90s, as Susie Weil said. But that story, and I think we all sort of have pieced together that story before about what they were up to during that period. And Trump was running a modeling agency with a lot of very young girls. There's pictures of him with those young girls that are, to me, they've always been one of the most startling things because he's clearly just leering at these young, and they are like 14 years old. They're very young, models. They were, especially in the 90s, there were a lot of very young models that were out there. Eastern European mostly, and very beautiful young girls. And he's standing there with them all surrounding him and leering at them. It's clear to me, and has been, I think, to most people who've been following him all these years. And he didn't used to hide it. I mean, this was just part of his persona, that he was that guy. And he and Epstein, according to this story in the New York Times, were competing with each other for how taunting each other with their exploits, and Trump would call up Epstein and just regale him in detail with events with women and what he was doing, and Epstein would put him on the speakerphone and make his assistant listen to it, which I'm sure she really enjoyed. I mean, this is the kind of grotesque thing that was going on, and I think I don't know what's in the files. I don't know if any of that sort of thing is there openly, obviously, with his name attached to it, and you can see it. But it just, the whole atmosphere around Epstein and Trump is the same. They were the same guy back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. They were both doing this stuff. And in one of the things in the article yesterday, this was something I hadn't heard before, they were busing in models into Mar-a-Lago, young girls, plying them with alcohol. And in fact, Marla Maples took some young girl and her mother aside and said, protect her.
Yes.
Don't let my husband near her.
Especially my husband. I wrote this quote. Yeah. Don't let her, the daughter, around any of these men, especially
this was at
my
like
husband.
What do you call it? A pageant, right?
I think it was a party at Mar-a-Lago, and I think they had brought in these girls. This was a 14-year-old, and her mother went with her, which was unusual. Most of these 14-year-old girls, 14 and 15-year-old girls that were in that orbit were, kind of living, kind of unfortunate lives with abusive homes and various things. They were targeted for that reason. So most of them were on their own dealing with this stuff. This girl happened to be with her mother. And Marla Maples, of all people, I mean, this was Trump's wife saying this. It wasn't just, some bystander. I mean, of course he was part of this. And anybody with a brain and who's been following this knows this. The guy has been accused by dozens of women of unwanted sexual assaults. I mean, this is absolutely these women have come forward. They've been out there for years, and we're putting up with this. I mean, it's just one of the things that we're putting up with Donald Trump, but it's a fundamental thing about him and his character and what kind of person he is, and also what kind of people voted for him. They knew this. This was not a secret. This is not something that just turned up in the second term and, oh my goodness, how did we know that he was like this? No, this has been there from the very beginning. They voted for him anyway. And in fact, a good number of our fellow Americans worship this guy. So, this is a thing that is going to be out there for him. And I was just thinking about this last night. I was thinking maybe they think they can just put this off. And Trump's not going to be around that much longer. He's old and he's aging fast and he is decrepit and frankly demented. It's not going to be that long. If he lasts to the end of the term, okay, whatever. But this stuff, the minute that he is gone, I just think these women are going to just burst out onto the scene because they would want to tell the story, but they're terrified. You see that guy. He is a man who believes in vengeance. He says it out loud and he's doing it in front of the whole country. If you were some young girl or some woman sort of on your own who was caught up in that thing, I totally understand why they are terrified to come forward and just, say he was one of them.
It's their only protection. I mean, you see, he's gone after Letitia James. He's gone after a Fed commissioner by drumming up charges with mortgage. They have now sanctioned two prosecutors from the ICC and have cut off their ability to use like credit cards or stuff like that, via our banking system. And so, people, they are legitimately afraid of what would happen in this instance,
let alone the other people that I think are, in some of these files that we may not know about. I mean, some of what was released yesterday by the House Democrats included some new faces, at least in terms of associations with Epstein. One being David Brooks, the conservative columnist for the New York Times, who just months ago, wrote about how why should we care about the Epstein files? It's not that big of a deal. And then in I think that same dinner, there were photographs of Sergey Brin, the Google or Alphabet executive whose ex-wife was RFK Jr.'s running mate, if people remember that, but also one of the wealthiest people on the planet too. I mean, just to give people a sense of like, there's going to be more people implicated than we even know publicly.
Yeah, no doubt.
I also think, I think your theory, well, the theory of just punt in any way you can, delay, that operates regardless of what you anticipate, how long Trump is going to be around. But I think that they probably think that, like, look, you always delay, right? You always delay in any way you can because you just don't know if things are going to turn better for you in some fashion. I think that's like, getting to why they haven't released it at this point. But it's going to be interesting to see if in the event that Trump has like a reason to step down or, departs this earth, probably long after he should, how much blame folks like J.D. Vance and the Republican Party will get. I mean, because we see the sort of the backlash on Democrats. Now, I don't know how much of it is sincere, but like you hid the fact that Joe Biden was, demented and old and blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, there is there may have been people around Joe Biden's circle who were hiding this. I have no doubt about it. And there were, some people had more or less access to Biden, and some may have known. But the fact of the matter is, like, this is the systems and the apparatus of the U.S. government is being deployed to hide whatever it is that they're trying to hide here. But let's go. I want to just also turn, because we got a lot to get to today. Trump gave a speech 2 nights ago. And right before, like, it was a last minute speech. They didn't seem to know about it on Tuesday, but on Wednesday afternoon, they're announcing it. And to the point where I think I texted everybody on our group chat, like, hey guys, we should maybe look for somebody who can talk about this invasion of Venezuela that he's bound to announce tonight.
Right.
And instead, he goes on and just, I don't know, gives like the world's quickest and loudest and lamest State of the Union address.
out the gate, just starts whining. Like as soon as after he says, hello or whatever the introduction was, Joe Biden got us.
I would have said hello.
Yes.
But Joe Biden made it impossible for me to start this.
Right. It was just complete.
Is the first thing he said.
And I inherited a mess, whining per usual.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone is buying that. If the people he needs to win over are not going to be satiated by the reheated complaint grievance fest that he engages in every single day on Twitter and or on Truth Social. I really do think that this is part of why this Reiner thing earlier this week, the horrific comments that he made about that horrible, horrible killing of Rob Reiner and his wife, that maybe is having more salience than people realize. Like, what's going to break through? What horrible thing he says or does will break through? It's because this fixation on himself, the narcissism is grating on people, and people have no patience for it, especially when the economy's this bad.
Absolutely. And, the speech, well, first of all, just the delivery of the speech. I mean, I guess they told him he had a particular, had a short period of time, so they told him to race through it. But he was just manic. And he wasn't just manic, he was angry. I mean, he seemed like, if I didn't know better, I'd think this is the last thing he wanted to do. He was like mad, and he was, spitting fire in this thing. Very strange thing to do. It's Christmas.
I'm not angry. Like he was blowing out his mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just strange. It was just very, but what isn't with this guy? But what he was saying, you're absolutely right, Emma. The whining, of course, to me, that is the most grating thing about Donald Trump and always has been. He's the greatest whiner the world has ever known. And, I'll use his branding there and say nobody's ever seen anything like it. And it's because it's true. No one's ever seen. And that's why it's so rich for him to say, the Somalians, they do nothing but complain. I'm going, yeah, dude. Yeah, it takes one to know one. This is ridiculous. But it was a wine fest. And essentially just trying to cast blame and to then try and convince people that somehow or another, you can believe me or you can believe your lying eyes. Things are really great and you just don't know it yet. And it's gonna be obvious, and all these great things are gonna happen. And I just don't think that. We know it's not working. The polling is showing that people are blaming him, not Biden. There's maybe a 30% of people, it's really that low, of people who are saying this is, Biden's fault. That's the hardcore MAGA people. Nobody else is buying that. Independents are, fleeing in droves. They're not buying it. And I don't think he has any other play. This is it for him. He doesn't have anything else he can do. The economy is in, obviously the tariffs are a problem, and he's not going to do anything with that. This is his big, this is his great big legacy policy. Tariffs. It's my favorite word, he says this. So he's not going to change that. They're going to try and whittle away at it. They're going to try and find ways for him to get out of it. But this is the damage he's done with tariffs is pretty extensive, and it's not going to go away. And he doesn't have anything. What's he going to do here? Now, it's always possible. What do I know? Things will just really look up. It'll be morning in America and everything will be great. But it really doesn't look that way, because these are long-standing economic problems that we're dealing with. The income inequality is becoming manifest to average Americans as they're watching the White House filled with a bunch of billionaires who are putting gold shit all over the place and, putting his name on everything. And, this is becoming pretty obvious to the American people that something has gone wrong. And that this economic situation that we're in, this stagnant economy, is not going to get that much better, and he can't do anything about that. Not he's incapable of it.
Here is a clip. Just to back up your point that people aren't buying it. When you are called out on Fox News for essentially lying and trying to gaslight, and you're a Republican president, never mind Donald Trump, you know you've got a problem. Here is John Roberts on with Howard Lutnick. Now, this is, I don't think we've seen Howard Lutnick in public since he basically said, like, oh, I knew Epstein was a horrible person the moment I met him.
Blackmailing everybody.
Oh, yeah, he was blackmailing everybody. Oh, wait a second. But here is John Roberts. And, you know, you got to hand it to Lutnick. You know, even when he wants to cry inside, he's able to sort of smile and lie.
Tonight, because some of them were just mathematically impossible. Listen to what he said about bringing down the price of prescription drugs. Listen to him.
I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations to which we're taking.
Hold on, pause it. Can we just like, I just want to just like, this is what I was talking about. Like, there were moments where the only thing I can imagine is that maybe like they all capped certain words.
It's written like his True Social post.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe?
Because he just, like the drug companies. And they wanted, we dropped it 500%. It's amazing though. That's what he does. All right, so go back.
No,
go
I
back
know.
to the
Matt was just like, you're blowing out the
Let's
soundboard.
not go crazy with that.
Sorry. All right, go back.
The prescription drugs. Listen to him.
I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations to which were taking advantage of our country for many decades to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%.
Well, if you cut something by 100%, the cost goes down to zero. If you cut it by 4, 5, or 600%, the drug companies are actually paying you to take their product. So it raises the question, how much of last night's speech was hyperbole and how much was fact?
No, what
Hyperbole.
he's saying is you bring it, if a drug was $100 and you bring the drug down to $13, right? If you're looking at it from $13, it's
not
down
it's not a
7
six-
times.
It's not a
down,
600%.
well, but it's
Oh.
700% higher price before. It's down 700% now, right? So a $13 would have to go up 700% to get back to the old one. So it all depends on when you look at it. You could say it's down 87%, or you could say it would have to go up 700% to be the same one. So it just depends on what you look at it. But basically what he's saying, and we all know what he's saying, is we are hammering the price of drugs down. That's
Okay. Now, the reason why I appreciate this clip is because John Roberts almost basically says, like, can we believe anything he says? Like, he seems to be lying about everything. And even Lutnick, to the extent that he can work it out, like it's 87%. First of all, it's not 87%, but also what they're citing is a Biden era program of negotiation with drugs through Medicare, which of course they started way late in their administration. And so, you know, as like classic Democratic, politics. But I mean, all of this stuff was just, he was just up there lying about stuff.
Well, and apropos of nothing, but just, remember that when they made the announcement with the drug prices, I think it was for the Ozempic drug prices, that's the one where Trump completely fell asleep in the meeting. Then some guy faints and he stands up and sort of stares off into space. I mean, I don't know. The whole negotiating with the drug companies thing, I don't really think that that's working out great for him in so many ways. It's absurd. I mean,
we got a really good deal on amphetamines, but it hasn't
Yeah.
showed up at the White House yet.
I mean, has anybody actually compiled a list of the absurdities that we are dealing with right now? I mean, just in every department, every agency, every aspect of the Trump administration, and then, we can go to Republicans in the Congress as well. It is overwhelming, the number of just absolutely ridiculous policies, announcements, pronouncements. And of course, we follow the worst of them, right up there. I mean, just immigration policy alone. I mean, just that alone would be
Right.
it's the most horrific one I can think of in my lifetime in terms of domestic policy. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, this is absolutely horrific. And now they're embarking, I don't know if I'm sure you have heard about this, but, on this new level, they've put together an executive order, and I think it's a national security memo of some sort, where they're calling Antifa the domestic terrorist organization, which is they're going to seize upon this completely unconstitutional, basis or rationale for actually going after liberal groups. They've named what groups like Act Blue, Indivisible, and they're going to use every, bit. Then they're going to call it material support for terrorism. Now that's illegal, of course. It's unconstitutional. We have free speech in this country, supposedly. But it will wend its way through the courts. But this is what they're going to do. And they're going to actually do it, at which point the Supreme Court will no doubt do what they've been doing the whole way along and say, well, it would be terrible for Donald Trump if we were to stop him from doing this. You can go ahead and then we'll take it up later, which is what they've been doing with the shadow docket from the beginning. This is, that alone is, I just wrote a piece on this. It's going to come out over the weekend on Salon about, this is COINTELPRO, right? The Hoover program where they were surveilling people and going after them with the IRS. There was even assassinations done against the Black Panthers. It's going back to McCarthyite, the McCarthy period. It's going back to the original Red Scare. And this is the kind of stuff that they're doing. And it's just another one of the things that we're talking about. There's just so much. And I don't know how, I hate to sound cynical, but I'm feeling that way. And maybe it's just the end of a long year and I need a break and maybe I'll feel better. And I do feel better in a lot of ways about certain things that are happening on the positive end. But this is terrible. This is just, I thought it was going to be bad. I knew it would be bad. And it's worse. It's worse in, dozens of different ways, and ways that are truly terrifying. This is scary stuff that they're pulling. And I don't see any great, there's no real resistance within the government. The only places you're finding it is in the lower courts, and you're finding it on the streets. And that's about it. And a little bit among the Democrats, but not much.
There's a couple of things. And one, we should say Ken Klippenstein has done really some of the best reporting on this. And we're hoping to have him on Monday if it works out. He's out of town at the moment. But we should also say the only other thing that I think is it's really just their general incompetence that is slowing this roll. And we should say that they're far more competent at this stuff this go round than they were the first term. That is like, without a doubt, the impetus and the catalyst and the impulse to do all the things they're doing now, Trump had in the first term and the people around him did, but they have managed this time to go in with a much deeper bench of loyalists than they had last time. And so none of this stuff is being thwarted. The flip side of that, though, is there was a report out, I think it was today or yesterday, the Department of Justice has had something like 22% of its cases dismissed on motion, which is like 21% more than the average in any given year. And it's because they have lost a huge amount of talent. And what happens when you lose 50% of the EPA, let's say, is that they don't go after polluters. That our air, our water gets more toxic, et cetera. This happens at all these agencies. But when you lose this within the Department of Justice, their ability to both prosecute crimes, broadly speaking, and to maneuver through the courts gets seriously undermined, both because they don't have the personnel and because they don't have the expertise, because more often than not, like the really quality attorneys in the DOJ, they realize this is a crap show and they're going to leave. Almost like definitionally, if you're a good attorney, more often than not, you are much more sort of like married to the law than the outcome. It's these are process people. That's sort of like the nature of these people. And so they leave regardless of what their politics are, because they're seeing process doesn't mean anything. All of a sudden, all the rules about the game that they have dedicated their lives to is like, they're saying like, we don't need to do this. And of course the courts aren't necessarily responding that way. That's why they're losing a fifth of their cases before they get actually move any further.
Yeah.
Like a motion to get your case dismissed as in a motion before the case actually even starts on some level is like just indication that you have no idea what you're doing. Like, you could literally pull somebody off the street and get close to that type of average. But speaking of other lies, and again, this speaks to your sort of broader point about that speech that he gave 2 nights ago, saying that it's all Biden's fault and everything's actually great. They put out inflation numbers, and let's pull this graphic. They put out inflation numbers, and for like, it felt like 3 hours, people were like, this is crazy. Inflation has basically just screeched to a halt in the Slack. Inflation has screeched to a halt. They've figured it out. They've solved it. And it turns out, if you look on this chart, put it up, the way that they solved inflation was much like Trump's idea on how to get rid of COVID.
Yep.
You just don't track it anymore. And so if you look at October and November, there's no data on food or energy. There's
only data
on gasoline and on cars, on new vehicles and used cars and trucks are the only ones. Everything else, all other commodities, all other energy service, electricity, which of course is not, has gone off the charts.
Yeah.
Largely because of 2 things. One, we have taken offline all of these renewable energy projects, like massive wind farms and solar farms have been taken offline. Either they were producing stuff or they were about to be produced stuff. And then simultaneously, they are building all of these data centers for AI, just maintain the inflation of this bubble, which is just, I think, like they're starting to realize, like, people just aren't using AI in the way that they thought they were going to.
I think they're also trying to outrace like certain local pushback and regulation, right? They're trying to build this to the point where there's and you see the electricity prices growing up. Electricity usage for residential has been flat for 20 years. It's all this like commercial stuff from AI.
And that's why Trump wants to have this national ban on local AI regulation, because they're going to define AI regulation as the energy centers that provide power for AI.
Right.
And so you can't.
Even Ron DeSantis is saying, "Whoa, wait a minute." I mean, that's how bad it is. States really are not happy with this at all. But
nor should they be. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk just briefly about what's happening in the House. I mean, it's pretty easy to sum up what's going on there. Mike Johnson has completely lost control over the House, and it's largely because there are a handful of Republican moderates who realize they are screwed right now because Donald Trump does not care. The only way that he's trying to win the election or the midterms seems to be essentially through cheating. And he's like, this is what's going to carry us through. And so now, I mean, we have more discharge petitions in the past 4 weeks, I think, than there was in like the past 20 years or something.
Yeah. I mean, you remember discharge petitions were always you'd be in this situation where the Democrats are in the minority or whatever, or progressives were trying to push something and everybody go, well, okay, we needed a discharge petition. And everybody just would roll their eyes. Okay, give it a try, but they never work. So whatever, it was just one of those things that was just, it was in there, but it just was, it's like impeachment, right? It was one of those things, just it can't possibly work. Nothing will allow that to work. Well, suddenly it's happening. And no one's more surprised than me because, I was caught in that too. I'm just going to go, well, good luck, guys. But these things, they don't work. And here they are, and it's working. And it's very, very interesting to see that happening. Now, Johnson's out there saying, well, this is the smallest minority in history, and this is the way things happen, and blah, blah, blah. I hate to tell him, Nancy Pelosi had a very, very narrow margin, and they passed massive legislation without a peep like this. There was no push, she managed to get it done. It's Mike Johnson is the problem, and the Republican House, caucus is the problem, and they have been for years. I mean, I'll take you back to the 1990s when Newt Gingrich was kicked out of office when he made a bad call in the election in 1998 and said that they were going to win a bunch of seats, and they didn't, and they got rid of him. We went through Tom DeLay. You went through John Boehner. You went through Paul Ryan. You went,
Denny Hastert. You're
Hastert
forgetting the guys the alumni who are in jail, or
yes, so forgettable, right? I mean, he's just another pedophile.
He was one of the OG Republican pedophiles.
And I think of that group, was he the longest serving?
No,
he was.
Was
no,
he?
I think he was. Oh yeah, he served for quite a while. I mean, he was long. Yeah, he was.
I thought Boehner was there for longer than Hastert, but maybe mistaken.
Whatever. The point is that the Republican Party has been and continues to be a mess when it comes to trying to legislate anything. They have a group of fanatical extremists who will not take yes for an answer. They have no interest in compromising. They're there for other reasons. I don't know. Nowadays, it's to be able to go on X and, insult people or whatever it is that they do, trolling. But they're not legislators. They're just people screaming into the void. And this has been going on for a very long time. I mean, John Boehner was a very skilled legislator. He'd been there for a long time. He'd been there all through, late 80s and 90s. He knew what he was doing, and he couldn't get it done. He would make deals and they would just spit in his face. And that's happening to Mike Johnson now in slightly different way, because it's the moderates in his party, the handful of moderates who are about to lose their seats who are rebelling. But he has no control. And, I think in his case, it's particularly vivid about how he's lost control, because basically he's just nothing more than a puppet for Donald Trump. I mean, this is all he is. He is following the Donald Trump playbook, but down to, John Thune, if you look at him in the Senate, he's a much more skilled kind of guy about this. He is, he's doing what Trump wants. He's trying to keep his group together. And that's not easy in the Senate anymore either, because they got a bunch of nuts over there too. Tommy Tuberville and Ron Johnson, a whole bunch of them. But he's much more skilled in the way that he sort of presents himself as a sort of a mediating neutral party who's trying to keep it all together. Johnson is just flat out Trump's boy, and everybody knows it. He even looks a bit like a marionette. I mean, don't you think he looks a little like Charlie McCarthy? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's Charlie McCarthy. He kind of looks like that. So, that is what he is. And he is, I guess not a marionette, it's a ventriloquist dummy.
Dummy, yes.
So, he has completely lost control. And the problem is, and that here, I saw Mike Lawler, the guy from New York, he's in a swing district. He's probably going to lose his seat. And he was one of the ones who signed on to the discharge petition. And he had said before that he'd pulled together some Democrats to do it with him, that they were going to do some, quote, reforms to Obamacare. I don't know I can't even remember what it was they were trying to do. I mean, I think it was some kind of means testing or something, along with the extension of the subsidy. And they couldn't get enough Democrats to do it, or Republicans. So that, went by the wayside. So he signed on to the discharge petition with the Democrats, which is just straight up three-year extension, no arguments, clean. He signed on to it, and he said, though, I'm hoping that in the Senate, they will not refuse to do that, and they'll have to come up with a compromise, which we'll then sign on to. So that's his game. But for the most part, I think most Republicans know they're going to lose next November. They can see the writing on the wall, and they see this as a way to destroy Obamacare. I think that's what they want to do. I think they want the subsidies to expire. I think they want people to suffer. They want to be able to blame it, blame the healthcare price. Yeah, just listen to Trump. I mean, that's what he says.
Right.
And I don't think, and Trump will come up with, we're just going to send them, send people money so they can buy the good insurance that they can't buy now, or some crazy nonsense that makes no sense whatsoever. And it's going to be cheaper and better. And I'm going, where is this fantastic insurance that they're unable to buy right now? But he doesn't understand healthcare, obviously. He doesn't understand much of anything. So I think they just want to let it go. Just, go ahead, let people suffer, and they're going to lose anyway. So So what, Mike Lawler? Who cares about you? Who cares about you people who are going to?
Well, it may be the case too that for a majority of the Republican caucus who are in increasingly kind of gerrymandered districts, as those states that we're talking about have manipulated their maps, Republican-led states, to make that the case. That the frontline Republicans like Mike Lawler, they can't get their voices heard in the same way because Mike Johnson just does what Trump wants him to do. And
Exactly.
the Century Foundation looked at the ACA subsidies and found that rural Americans are going to be hurt disproportionately, that costs will be 28% higher than for urban Americans. And you see where there's the highest rates of ACA enrollees in rural areas in the country. It's Alabama, it's Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, and Wyoming. And those are all states that didn't, well, there's a few other ones that did expand Medicaid. But in terms of these are also the states that didn't expand Medicaid, point being. So, like, what's so devastating, or just, I think maybe revealing is the better word, about the Republican Party is that they know that there is a desert of health insurance and healthcare coverage for those constituents, but they are concentrated in deep red rural districts that are represented by these Republicans, and they don't think, it doesn't seem like they think the majority of the caucus will pay the price. And so it's more beneficial for them to take away healthcare from their constituents than it is for them to go against Donald Trump for a majority of the caucus.
Right. And they are adamantly opposed to Obamacare. Just on a, this has just goes back to the very beginning. I mean, they're still opposed to Medicare, for crying out loud. I mean, they're cutting healthcare across the board, and they're happy to see it go. They will consider that an accomplishment to make their own constituents suffer.
And this is the sort of structural advantage that a nihilist party has, right? Because if they do believe that they're going to lose, and it's not just, I mean, to be fair, it's not just gerrymandering. Some of it's self-sorting, but the point remains, there's a lot of these districts where it's like, it's blood red. They're never going to lose. The more to the right they are, the better chance they have to keep it in avoiding a primary, which is really their only threat for, I don't know, let's just say 75, it's probably closer to 80% of Republicans. And so from their perspective, if they trash the place, as it were, and leave the government in shambles, it just means that the Democrats, when they come in, are going to have a theoretically harder time fixing it. There's just going to be more things, right?
Absolutely,
and so it makes complete sense for them to do this. But here's the thing, and this is just a moment to pivot to the last topic I want to talk to you about. We're going a little late, and I appreciate you're hanging with us. The Democratic autopsy from 2024, I want to say came out, but it didn't come out.
No, it didn't.
It was finished, and apparently it was then buried. And I did see a thread from Christine Pelosi, although it turns out she had blocked me on Twitter, but I saw it anyways. I don't know why she blocked me. I've been nothing but well, I could probably guess why she blocked me. But be that as it may, they put out a thread which, had some helpful stuff insofar as like it talked about, wait, I don't have it here. I have it somewhere, but it's a lot of it was like best practices stuff, like the way that they were going to do sort of like ground game stuff. But none of it was based upon any type of like positions or any type of like things that you would run on. It was really more about like what they put out was like, when we do our field work, we should be doing X, Y, and Z. And yes, that's helpful and that's good. Best practices should be honed and whatnot. But there was a very like explicit. Oh yeah, you can put this up here. The DNC here said that they're not going to put it out, and the reason why is because they've been winning in special elections So in other words, like the anti-Trump fervor is enough. We don't need to course correct on anything. Go to the next one.
By the way, they promised they were going to release it, and then they're backtracking. Ken Martin.
And then what they did is results-driven organizing, and it's a lot of, I'm sure some of this is very helpful. Talks about the youth swing vote, and again, more or less like you need to do more podcasts, or they say like, we lost the game in terms of the media, but it was all.
What did young people care about in this election that was not represented by the candidate at the top of the ticket? Just thinking about it for 1 second, perhaps the genocide.
Look, we saw a bunch of polling that came out since. We know that one of the things, the results-driven organizing, one of the things that the Harris campaign did is when they sent out their field people, and this is amazing to me too, because this was the problem with the Clinton campaign. The Clinton campaign, in lieu of having volunteers to go out and canvass, prior to the get out the vote, they did modeling from it was like Eric Schmidt and this and that. And so they had no sense that there's a problem with the models because they didn't have people out there. And, we heard a lot of stories on the get out the vote in the week or two before. 25% of the doors we're knocking on are going to vote for Trump. And that's a problem with your get out the vote. You don't want to be doing the people you're running against, their job. Well, Harris field people kept getting back. We got a problem with Gaza. And to the point where at one point they said, okay, we don't want that feedback anymore. So they told canvassers, like, we don't report that to us anymore. We don't even want that data.
We don't even want to know about it.
We don't even want to know about it because they were so determined not to move from it. Yeah. And who knows if that was in the audit? We will never know.
Hopefully a good Samaritan leaks what happened in the autopsy. Honestly, I mean, to the press.
It seems so ridiculous to me. When I read that yesterday, I'm going, okay, so there's a big story now that you're refusing to release it. So it looks, again, this is like the Trump thing, right? It looks like you're trying to hide something.
Yeah.
What could you possibly be hiding that we are unaware of? That the last year we have spent going over and over this stuff. People have been talking about it. It's been out there. There's been polling. There's been discussions. We know, but the report all it would have said was that it was codifying what we already know as a problem, and that the party is aware of it, and that the party understands that they needed to do something about it. That's all it would have done. And instead, it's going to be this big thing. I don't understand.
Because they need plausible deniability. They need to be able to allow whomever it is, the abundance people or the people who are using anti-Semitism as a way of shutting down, anti-Israel perspective, whatever it is, they need the plausible deniability. If they have the data themselves, it moves from like sort of an objective conversation or a subjective conversation into an objective one. And
Axios had an article today, and it's in the second line, that several Democrats they basically say to Axios that burying the report unfairly helps former Vice President Harris if she runs again, and shields top party consultants by hiding potentially damaging information about their efforts. This is a group of people, institutionalists, circling the wagons, closing the castle gates, and basically fortifying and staying inside and trying to maintain their own power. This is not about the health of the party. This is not about changing course even. And maybe behind the scenes they'll say like, okay, we don't want to acknowledge this publicly, but we will change course. And I have a theory about that. But this is mostly about the people within the institution trying to maintain their own power. And it's literally leading us to fascism. It's a major problem. And one other point too is like when this hurts their case on democracy when they show such little transparency, whether it's even the shutting out of the idea of someone primarying Biden and just saying like we are maintaining this like current power structure, and we're going to charge ahead regardless of outside input, and not having the respect for Democratic voters for them to be able to look at this kind of thing. Like it makes it seem, and it seems clear to me, that these are people prioritizing their own internal power within the party over actual democracy. And you perform democracy not just on election day. You do it by showing responsiveness to your own voters, including on the issue of the genocide, but including on people wanting desperate changes in leadership and transparency on what the hell happened. That's just a way to regain trust that you've lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that I actually think it's not going to work. I don't think, I mean, if you look at things like the No Kings protests, you look at the voters in all these off-year elections, they're not buying it, and they're not following the Democratic line, whatever it is, because I don't even know what it is. I mean, I think the loss was so profound last November, and the loss in the Congress and the way that the Congress has unfolded. I mean, you look at the approval ratings of the Democratic Party.
We have that actually. Number 28. This is number 28. This is Harry Emden of CNN, and Trump's approval is in the toilet, and Democrats have racked up big wins in these special elections, but it is, and it may be sustainable in November, let's hope, but it is not sustainable when you've got numbers like this.
That's right now.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
That's independents and overall, but what about Democrats on Democrats?
Yeah, what about Democrats on Democrats? So part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low. But that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating, and that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on, but Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out. They have returned against Democrats in Congress, and you mentioned Dan Goldman in that intro. One of the reasons that Dan Goldman is in trouble right now in a potential primary against Brad Ladner is because at this point the Democratic base.
That's first of all, that the numbers are the numbers, but the Dan Goldman has a problem because if it wasn't for 4 progressives splitting the vote last time, Dan Goldman would have come in 5th, and so that's. But be that as it may, but that is stunning. And Emma has a theory that they are looking at this autopsy, but they want to be able to interpret it.
That's a good way to maybe just show this quick clip. This is my theory. We texted this last night in our little group of this answer from Hakeem Jeffries. This is really quick here. He was on Macro Dosing, the Barstool podcast, interestingly, but this is how they do outreach to the youths. And this answer from him is pretty good on the substance, but it's interesting that he's making this case now. And my theory is that this coincides with what the DNC found internally.
I was wondering, what is your view on the Trump brinkmanship towards Venezuela?
Yeah, well, I'm not supportive of it at all. I think that this effort potentially to try to trigger regime change is very dangerous. We've seen this happen in other parts of the world, particularly in Iraq. It never works out. And the last thing that we need is another failed war. As a matter of fact, President Trump promised as candidate Trump, no more foreign wars. And he's doing the exact opposite by potentially triggering one as it relates to Venezuela. I don't support the Maduro regime, but there are bad actors all across the world. And we've got a lot of problems here in this country that we need to resolve in order to make sure that, you know, people have the ability to provide for themselves and their families. Far too many people, like literally middle-class people, are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, cannot thrive, and can barely survive. Let's work on that problem.
Sounds like the majority report a little bit. Sounds like what we've been saying was the most salient argument.
I was wondering, what is your view?
Oh, this is what we've been saying, and you know, this is a straightforward political case. Why are our resources being going to funding a genocide when they could be here helping you materially at home? That's a very easy case that the Democrats can make if they are not captured on that front. And the fact that he's making this point now, when we just had Chuck Schumer, we played the clip of him last week, where he refused to answer Jake Tapper's question. Do we have that one? No, I don't think we have that one. Oh. I'll just explain it briefly. He refused to answer Jake Tapper's question about whether or not he supports the goal of regime change. Then you have a week later, Hakeem Jeffries drawing a distinction on that front. And my guess is they heard in these, like in this autopsy, that the Democrats being supportive of the genocide or war or being perceived as such was a major problem for them, and it made people feel like this is what they care about and not my kitchen table issues and not my material needs. This is what we've been saying all along.
Here is, let's play that clip of Chuck Schumer. And I would also remind people that when Trump brought, I can't remember his name now, the guy who's the extant of Venezuela, Guaido. When he brought Juan Guaido to the State of the Union, the Democrats couldn't get out of their seats fast enough to give him a standing ovation.
Biden just hosted him as
the rival sort of like shadow president. I don't know where he's gone now. I imagine he's working for some investment firm. But here is Chuck Schumer. This is just 7 days ago.
Do you disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know, obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he talks about that. So it's very, very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse that, when Trump is all over the lot, not very specific, and very worrisome at how
not
far
specific.
I'll tell you, okay. That is, like, definitionally not the bottom line.
That
like,
is
when
not
you
true.
were asked, do you agree with regime change in Venezuela? And you start with the bottom line is, and then start talking about stuff that is clearly like almost close to the top line. You know, do I agree with regime change in Venezuela? Where the heck is Donald Trump? One day it's blue, one day it's red. We don't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm very confused. I have no idea.
Right.
And here he is, speaking about regime change, here he is going after Donald Trump. Was this prior?
June.
This is prior to bombing Iran, right?
Yes. Yep. This is what it looked like Trump might not.
This is how you say, supposedly this is how you get against regime change. Here it is, Chuck Schumer.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran.
No!
Bull is this. They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American.
Look, here's the thing. You ask me, should we blow up the world? I want to. Here's the bottom line. Donald Trump's all over the place. I can't tell if he's excited to blow up the world or if he's sad about blowing up the world. Does he want to blow up the world on a Tuesday or does he want to do it on a Thursday? Or is this something we should do on the weekend? I can't get my arms around it. It's too confusing.
He did it through the wrong procedure. He wants to blow up the world, but he didn't
bottom line.
file the right paperwork.
The bottom line is,
it's the process.
You can't the right way.
Wait, he's saying one day he wants to blow up the world, the next day he wants to blow up 7/8 of the world. I'm confused. I can't follow any of it.
Oh my
no
God.
side deal.
Well, look. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, he's probably the worst example of all, by far.
And unfortunately, he's the highest elected leader in the Democratic Party.
Democratic Party. And he's the worst example. And I mean, you know, he's not alone by any means. But this is what's driving people crazy. I just want to say, though, that, you know, we look at those numbers of, you know, people being upset with the Democratic Party, I mean, really upset with the Democratic Party, and Democrats themselves feeling that way. I mean, those are terrible numbers. But I think that what people are doing is saying, I'm not listening to those people. I don't care about that. You know, that's not what I'm doing. I think that they are becoming irrelevant to voters, that they're no longer something that you take into consideration. And they're coming out. I mean, if you look at I mean, people are voting for Democrats in deep red districts where they haven't voted for a Democrat in decades. They're voting for Democrats in places like Miami. I mean, this is a protest vote. It's obviously just, an absolute reaction against Donald Trump. And the way I'm choosing to look at this is, I think, people like us who talk about the Democratic Party and who, care about policy and who are trying to work their way, or trying to, force the Democratic Party to change direction. I think what Emma says is absolutely true. I think on some level, if you listen to Hakeem Jeffries, that's working. That is actually pushing them. They know that they're in trouble, and they're listening to people, voters. They're listening to people like you. They're reading things that they're, kind of going, look. And maybe that autopsy said it right out. Said, look, you've got to change here, and they just don't want to say it publicly. I'm hopeful that's it. But whatever it is, the people themselves are the ones who are going to make the difference here. They're not listening to these people. They're doing their own thing. They're coming out and they're voting against Donald Trump. They're voting for their own, there's certain, candidates and people that they like, Mamdani being a perfect example of it in the biggest city in the country. They're coming out and, they're supporting that kind of thing. And it's the only thing I feel hopeful about. And I'm feeling very cynical about this country and the horrifying job that's going to be left for us if perchance we actually defeat this, horrible MAGA movement and move on to something else. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really tough. But I am hopeful about this idea that I think that it's the people who are leading. The Democrats are not leading, they're following. And that's what they need to do. They need to shut up. We need to get Chuck Schumer. Just don't stop talking. Stop helping. You're not doing anything. But I don't think people are listening to him. I think they're coming out and they're voting. They're coming out to these big protests. They're doing that stuff. And that's the one thing we have going for us. People are coming out in the streets in places like Minneapolis. They're coming out in Chicago and in Charlotte, North Carolina, and blowing whistles to try and help their immigrant neighbors when ICE comes to town. I mean, this is, that's kind of inspiring to me. I mean, they're taking their own safety into, they're doing something. They're doing something, I guess is what I'm saying. And so, I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna because I don't feel that way at all. But I do think that there's some hope in that the party itself, let's just put it this way, they better be listening. They better be listening because this is the future.
I have given up on the concept of the party listening and more like just, people who align with our issue set winning. Like,
just get out of the way. Yeah. Get out of the way, party. You're just, whatever.
And I will say this, if you look at the Senate, if the Democrats are in a position to take the Senate back, it is going to be a function of people who are decidedly to the left on a lot of issues from the Democratic, like from the center of the Democratic Party. Like I'm thinking, I think the best chance that Democrats have to take beat Susan Collins is going to come from Plattner, who is decidedly to the left of,
Mills.
Not just Mills, but I'm saying like most of the Democratic Senate caucus. And in Nebraska, Osborne wouldn't be a Democrat, but to the extent that he would be engaging in a lot of these issues, in maybe 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, he's going to be to the left of your, mainstream Democrat. You can look like in Iowa and Alaska, there could be pickups there. Will be slightly to the left, certainly, of where we are now. Maybe Texas, Florida,
Even North
unlikely.
Carolina. Roy Cooper is not a right wing guy, even though he's from the South.
Yeah, he's not like Sam Nunn or somebody like that.
It wouldn't be a flip, but Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota is a supporter of Medicare for all, for example.
I mean, in almost every like if they take back the Senate, it's going to be decidedly to the left of where it was when they held the Senate just a couple of years ago. And so that is an indication that this stuff is working. And I don't think Chuck Schumer is going to be Senate Majority Leader or even Senate Minority Leader in, come this time. Well, I guess January of 2027. So
I totally agree. Either way, whether they take the Senate or not, I think Schumer is this is going to be his last year.
But it would be nice to not have the standard be ignoring leadership and having grassroots energy. Yeah. Like having the grassroots energy that you're talking about be in spite of it. If we could have someone like a Van Hollen come in and be a vocal voice for what the party stands for as the top Democrat in the Senate.
On.
Yeah.
Why?
What stands for? What is that? What are you talking about?
I know, Chuck Schumer.
Talking about principles or something? I mean, that's values. What is
Trump's
that?
all over the lot.
Oh, come on. Yeah, she's all over she's crazy. Listen,
she's all over the lot.
Here's what we're going to do in 2026 that's going to make everything different. 2 words. Social media. We're going to do the social media.
The social media.
We're going to do the social media. Everything is, you'll see.
Everything's social.
You'll see.
God.
I got the Baileys. I got the Baileys have now fiber. Fiber internet.
Wow.
Yes. They have fiber internet. And
did they get TikTok on the
They got the TikTok.
On the Baileys?
No more dial-up
for the
them.
Baileys.
Yeah.
So the fiber is, you'll see. You'll see. Don't count me out. Heather.
God.
Well, we made it through another year.
We did. Barely, but we're here.
We are here, and I look forward to talking to you many more times in 2026.
Yep,
and may 2026 be better than 2025.
Well,
that was ridiculous to say that, but
I know. Well,
I suspect
don't want it to be worse. I mean, my God.
I suspect it's going to be a little bit. Well, I will say, just as an end to this year, because this is the final Friday of the year, that my fears about the ease in which we could slide into an authoritarian regime have been slightly assuaged, but largely in part because of the way, largely in part because of the way that people have come out on the streets and have fought against ICE. That and in part because of what we're seeing, like with the DOJ falling apart and judges pushing back in a way that I think is healthy, and the inability of the Republicans to maintain their caucus in many respects. So I think there's going to be elections in 2026. I think Trump is going to do his best to sort of like undermine what comes out of that. But I don't think there's only so much he can do, particularly when we have these type of, what we're seeing in terms of like the redistricting and just where people are. So Heather.
There's war. So, but
there's always war.
And I don't think there'll be a rally around the flag for the Venezuela thing. I don't think so. I don't think the right's going to go along with it, and I think the left is going to completely explode.
They did their best with making Hugo Chavez like a demon, and like nobody, like 98 out of 100 Americans have never heard the word Maduro. And, to the extent that they had never registered, there's just, it's very, very difficult.
And think Venezuela's an island.
I'm quite convinced
it's
they think
surrounded by an armada.
I would bet you that 25%, a healthy 25% of the American public think Venezuela is in the Middle East.
Yep.
And by the way, I think that includes Donald Trump. I think he's among that 25%.
Well,
He does not find it on a map. I mean, yeah, it's an oil place. Yeah. Anyway, it's just that's But the next time I come on, we have to make a point of talking about the new Trump national security strategy. It's just beyond. It's beyond. And,
Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah.
Again.
Crazy stuff. Anyway, but.
Heather, have a great holiday and a wonderful new year, and we will see you in 2026.
I'll be here. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye-bye. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.